Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.
World War II in Oklahoma will be the topic on Read About It tonight. Hi, I'm BJ Williams. With me is Molly Levite Griffis to tell us about her new book, The Feaster Filibuster. Susie Beasley will be here with Ruby Soutier. Kids Corner will feature Heidi Johnson. We also have Doug Benton, Clyde Martin, and Chancey Head. Coming up, Molly Griffis.
The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It, with your host, BJ Williams.
Molly Griffis is an award-winning Oklahoma writer. In fact, she won the Oklahoma Book Award just recently. For a number of years, she owned her own publishing company, Levite of Apache, and a very special bookstore down in Norman. These days, she's devoting her time full-time to writing, and she's here to talk about The Feaster Filibuster, which sort of takes up where the Rachel resistance left off, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Actually, I had kind of an epiphany with this particular book. I had written 125 pages still from Rachel's point of view. The first book was The Rachel Resistance. And while I liked it, it wasn't going right. There was some ingredient of it that was wrong. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, this isn't Rachel's story, this is John Allen's story. So I took all the strength that I had, hit the delete button. I did put it on a disc ahead of time just in case I had a heart attack later, and started all over again. And as you read, the opening line is, John Allen says, if you read a book about Rachel, she said a lot of things about me that aren't true, so now I'm going to tell how it really happened.
And for those who haven't read The Rachel Resistance, it's set in Apache, Oklahoma, during World War II, and Rachel is an elementary school
fifth grade
girl who was convinced, among other things, that John Allen Feaster was a spy for the enemy. Especially, she began to think that maybe he had something to do with what happened at Pearl Harbor.
Oh yeah, because then she could get him deported. That was her whole plot. Captain Midnight had told her that every small town had spies, traitors, and saboteurs in them, and she figured John Allen was #1 on the list for being all of the above.
Well, and we found out why in The Feaster Filibuster. We find out why John Allen is sort of #1 on everyone's let's get him deported list.
That's right. We find out his mother has deserted him, and he's got a lot of big issues, as they say now, with the world. Again, it was interesting. I wrote Rachel before 9/11. I wrote John Allen, or The Feaster Filibuster, after 9/11. And so I was able to pull in all the stuff. For instance, on the cover is the cover of the Rose Bowl in 1942. This book takes place in 42. They moved the Rose Bowl from Pasadena to Durham, North Carolina, because they were sure that the Japanese was going to bomb the Rose Bowl. So there were all kinds of interesting parallels because, you know, they got very concerned about the Rose Bowl this year. I really had excitement when I discovered that 1942 had 3 Friday the 13th. I'm a real Friday the 13th freak.
Well, yes, and it showed up rather early in this book, didn't it?
And I went so far as at the back we have a perpetual calendar, so you can look and see which years, because every year has 1 Friday the 13th. Some have 2, and some real rare ones have 3. Well, 42 was a year that had 3. Well, we were already in war, so we didn't need any more bad luck than what we had, but I was able to weave a lot of the story around those 3 Friday the 13th that were in 42.
And you also got into the fact that obviously lots of small towns were missing their young men after December the 7th.
Right.
And some parents got some pretty bad news from the War Department. But you also talked about the blue stars that people put up in the windows. Your grade school teacher put up a bulletin board where she could put pictures of everybody that went off to
Those
war.
star flags figure real big on that. I told you before when we talked about Rachel, I had so many serendipity things, so many odd things. I met a woman from here in Oklahoma whose brother, they were from Canton if I remember correctly, was killed in the Philippines. And strangely enough, this little tiny town, the next week, the boy next door was killed in the Philippines, too, in this little tiny town. Then about 2 months later, the boy next door walked back in. That's where I got this twisty plot in here to have him come back, because she said her parents spent the rest of the war and actually the rest of their lives waiting for that boy, their son, to come back, since it had happened to the people next door. So everything that happened in this book really happened to somebody in Oklahoma, and I'm real proud of that, to be able to preserve that.
Yeah. Well, reviewers have commented about how you seem to be able to transport yourself right back to that time. What impresses me, I guess because I think kids are another universe, not only do you go back in time, you are very convincing when you're talking from the viewpoint of a fifth grader about what's going on in the world and how they see the world, which is an entirely different way than how you and I would look at it.
I think it helped that I taught that age kids, you know, for a while. When I taught, I did have fifth grade at one time. But I think I'm probably still fifth grade mentality. That's kind of the way I see the world, you know, because people tease about Rachel having such a wild and vivid imagination, which I did too. You know, I listened to Captain Midnight and I looked for spies and traitors. we had several of them in Apache that just never came and picked them up. I was always sorry about that.
Well, I noticed that Rachel is continuing throughout the Feast or Filibuster. She keeps trying to find spies. None of them seem to pan out really well, though, do they?
Right. No, that's sort of her trouble. But then when she begins, Simon Green moves into town too, and that I had fun with that. I was already anticipating a sequel for that, of Simon Green's name perhaps not being Green, perhaps being named Greenberg, you know, because he comes in and we didn't get new kids in Apache ever, and when we did, we were awfully excited about it. So Simon comes in and he becomes sort of the foil for the other side with John Allen to pull him back to reality, because Simon's daddy is in the war. And I needed someone, you know, that was intimately involved that way, whose father was there.
Yeah. Well, and who can be the bridge between Rachel and John Allen. Rachel has just lost her best friend as the Feast or Filibuster opens. John Allen doesn't have any friends because he's also sort of new in town. They moved there from California. And he starts out, he thinks, well, he needs a friend. Maybe Simon can be a friend, except Simon's already starting to be Rachel's friend, and now what's he going to do?
Right. And Miss Oxley, the teacher, I can't remember if I left her name that way, but she was a real teacher, and she was wonderful. You know,
Odious Oxley, I believe, is how they refer to
it. That's right, because they had to have the word odious. In fact, I thought about changing her name, but Miss Oxley was a wonderful, wonderful lady, just with a very commanding presence, and she really taught, and kids really didn't want to be in her class, and then when they were, you know, much the better for it. So I had fun dredging up the memory of her too.
Well, now you talked about continuing to write. I take it Simon Green is going to figure in something in the future?
Well, I think if I do a prequel, sequel, whatever you do, the next one after, and I'm not sure, I'm on an adult novel right now, but if I do another children's book, Simon, I got really carried away with Simon because he had read the Encyclopedia Britannica in its entirety 3 times, you know, and Rachel and John Allen were both so bright, but they had never met anybody who had read the encyclopedia 3 times in its entirety.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Molly, for being with us today.
All right.
We've had with us today Molly Levite Griffis. She's been telling us about her new book, The Feast or Filibuster. You can find this book at your library and your favorite bookstore. Coming up next, we have Susie Beasley. She'll be talking with Ruby Soutier about a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.
Ruby, what does the title Irreparable Damage by Joseph T. Kiltner have to do with this book?
Well, this is a very intense kind of story. This is a story of a man named Stephen Barrow, who is a divorced father of a 6-year-old girl named Penny.
Yes.
And Stephen and his ex-wife Ada have joint custody of Penny, but Penny lives with Stephen, and as time goes by, Ada has less and less interest in her daughter, so it's mostly Stephen and Penny, and they're together, and his whole life revolves around his daughter. He's a writer, so he can spend time at home with her, and he drives her to school, and he drives her home from school, and he just spends all this time with her. And one evening in February, she is in the tub taking a bath, and she makes a horn on her forehead out of soap suds, and she says, "Look, Daddy, I'm a unicorn." And when he comes in and sees how cute she looks and how funny this is, he makes a mistake in judgment, and he takes some photos of his daughter nude, standing in the tub with this horn on her forehead. And he takes the pictures, he finishes up the roll of film, he takes it to the local drugstore in the small town where he lives for developing. And the lady that runs the developer machine thinks that the pictures are child pornography. And she calls 911 and reports this to the police.
And that starts the ball rolling.
That starts the ball rolling. Stephen is arrested. He loses custody of his daughter. His Jeep is impounded because he drove the film to be developed, and I guess it's a law now that if your vehicle's used in the crime, then...
So what did you find the most memorable about the book to keep people turning the pages?
Well, the story is real intense, and it's a very exciting story, but the thing that I think I will always remember about this book is the fact that the author says that this is based on a true
story
happening, and at the end of the book, he has a little note in the back that says that this happens more frequently than we would hope.
Well, Pauline, Ruby, we really appreciate you coming and sharing with us Joseph T. Kepler's Irreparable Damage. It's a fairly new book available at your local library and local bookstore. Thank you.
If you spend 15 minutes a day reading to a child, you're doing more than reading. You're building a bond that lasts a lifetime. Hi, I'm Penny McCaleb, Chairman of your Metropolitan Library Commission, and I urge you to read to your children. Not only will they learn to love reading, they will also become better students. Our children's librarians will be happy to help you select just the right book. The next time your child hands you a book, take the time to read. You'll both be glad you did.
Doug Benton is here today. Instead of me telling you about some books, we're going to talk about what's happening at the library, and there's all kinds of things going on for little kids, big kids, and really big kids, grown-ups too, Doug,
I don't know where you got that idea. I have absolutely nothing to say. You have to, no. I've been wanting to do that to you for a long time. What I brought was this magazine. We publish this, as you well know. You do. This comes out every month. It's called Metro Library. This is something new. For years, we've been just printing out the schedule of programs.
It looks like a
calendar,
a calendar,
just a regular
newsletter.
calendar. But we've changed that, and we've been doing this for several months now. And in our first year of publication, we won an award with this from the Public Library Association. So it's really very nice. This is the first issue that we've put out that was in 4 colors, slick paper. I mean, this is a professional magazine. It's edited by Gene Devlin, who for years worked with Oklahoma Today magazine. And it still has the calendar of events in here. Children's programmings are in kind of a salmon color there. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you can see that. But anyway, that's in the back. But it's also got articles in it, book reviews. We haven't been able to talk you yet into submitting a book review, but I do one every month. It's a monthly magazine. Program, though, that go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, it also has the Read About It listings in there. So if you're curious about who the author is going to be next week, you can check out the magazine.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good information about what's happening in the library for any given month. Another program, though, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is something new that we've started. You know, I think a lot of our viewers probably know that I review movies for the Oklahoma Gazette. And so I have some contacts with the George Gruby Advertising Agency. Gruby is the company that has as some of its clients some of the major film studios, Disney, 20th Century Fox, DreamWorks, some of those guys. And so we worked to deal with Groovy so that we can now the library is now sponsoring free screenings of some new movies. The studios love these preview screenings because they can get people in there to look at the films and they get an idea of what the audience reaction is going to be. Talk to your local librarian to find out when we're doing the next one and how you can get free tickets to the movies.
Thanks very much, Doug, and I'll remind everybody, check with your librarian and also with the Metro Library magazine. Coming up next, we have Kids Corner. I got a chance to talk with Heidi Johnson about a book for our very youngest readers. Heidi, what did you bring for us tonight?
Hi, BJ. This is a book called Mercedes and the Chocolate Pilot. It's a story that just got me right here. It goes back in the history, about 50 years now. And it's a story about the Berlin airlift.
And for most people, that was something that happened right at the beginning of the Cold War.
Exactly, and like, what was that? Well, basically what had happened at the end of World War II is that the city of Berlin was isolated. It was surrounded by other countries, and there was only a very narrow air corridor that people could come in and out of the city of Berlin. All the supplies had to be brought into the city by airplanes. And there was this fleet of planes, I don't know how many hundreds and thousands of planes that would fly on a daily basis.
Actually, it was 24 hours a day. One was landing every 5 to 10 minutes, constantly.
Right, and weather permitting, that fleet of planes was going in, bringing all the necessary supplies to the city of Berlin, to the people that lived there, all the food, all the heating materials, the clothes, everything had to be brought into the city. So it was a struggle to supply the people with the necessities, let alone the little luxuries that we often take for granted. And it's the story of the little girl named Mercedes. She raised her chickens, trying to help supply some food by having some eggs available, except her chickens were not laying very many eggs anymore because all the planes going over her house. They thought they were a chicken hawk and would dive for cover and no longer lay any eggs. What had happened during the airlift, or all the supplies that were coming in, this one Colonel Gail Halverson, had noticed that the children had no candies, no sweets of any sort, and he made it his personal mission to supply some candy to the children of Berlin. He started out by making 12 little handkerchief parachutes, and he put some Hershey bars and some chewing gum and a variety of things on that, and dropped them over the city as he was flying in. Well, he became so popular doing that, he would have hundreds and thousands of letters from children. Please, I didn't get any candy. Please make sure I get some. And they would draw him maps and say, this is where my house is. Well, Mercedes never got any. She wrote a letter, and she got a package from Colonel Halverson.
And they've been friends ever since.
Been friends ever since.
They're going to have to read the book. We're out of time, but thank you again, Heidi.
You're welcome.
It's time now for the New York Times bestseller list. We'll start out with hardback fiction. Number 10 on that list is An Accidental Woman by Barbara Delinsky, The Emperor of Ocean Park by Stephen Carter, Stone Kiss by Faye Kellerman, Sunset in Saint-Tropez by Danielle Steele, The Nanny Diaries by Emma McLaughlin and Nicola Krauss, The Beach House by James Patterson and Peter DeYoung, 11th Hour by Catherine Coulter, A Love of My Own by E. Lynn Harris. Number 2 is The Remnant by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins, and number 1 is The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. On the nonfiction list, number 10 is Good to Great by Jim Collins, Running with Scissors by Augustine Burroughs, You Cannot Be Serious by John McEnroe with James Kaplan, Why I Am a Catholic by Gary Wills, John Adams by David McCullough, Stupid White Men by Michael Moore, Tuxedo Park by Janet Conant, The Lobster Chronicles by Linda Greenlaw, Among the Heroes by Jerry Longman is number 2, and Ann Coulter's Slander is number 1. On the children's list, at number 10 is Jedi Quest, The Dangerous Game by Jude Watson, Princess in the Spotlight by Meg Cabot, Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, Holes by Louis Sekar, Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling, Good Morning Gorillas by Mary Pope Osborne, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is number 2, and Rowling's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is number 1. Coming up next, we have Doug Benton from the Metropolitan Library System and the Oklahoma Gazette. He'll be talking with Clyde Martin, that renowned radio opera host, about a book I think you'll find very interesting.
Thanks. Hello again, everybody. I'm here once more with Clyde Martin. Clyde, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
It's always good to see you. Clyde, you have some videotapes and a book all relating to one of the great actresses of our day.
Judi Dench. And, you know, she's, of course, in a lot of movies now. She's on television. And when she first became known, generally with the public, she was asked by a reporter, Miss Dench, what did you do before James Bond and Mrs. Brown? Well, she did about 65 years of plays, for one thing.
There's no honor in that anymore, I'm afraid.
She, of course, has played in every classical playwright you can think of from Shakespeare on, including Chekhov and Ibsen and Shaw and all the rest. But that was primarily in England and, you know, on tour and that sort of thing. Very little elsewhere until finally she was discovered first by television. And the first thing she did was a series with her husband, who just died just last year, Michael Williams, called A Fine Romance. And then, of course, she was already doing small roles in movies, but not very many. And then she did As Time Goes By, which now, of course, is being shown on Channel 13 here in Oklahoma City. So, and she is one of those people who, she gives the impression of being so completely in control. But, of course, all performers aren't that way.
Right.
And she is no exception. When the author of this book was writing it, he was going to rehearsals and to the set of television and movies that she was doing. And at one point, Jeffrey Palmer, who plays her husband in As Time Goes By, and she were doing a scene, and she was fluffing lines one right after the other. And Jeffrey Palmer called over to the author of this, and he said, "You see, she's not always perfect." And also, she is a great practical joker, which you would never suspect. Never suspect that. But she is, and one of her biggest practical jokes was played on the entire theater community in England. And she and Anna Massey, who is Raymond Massey's daughter, were doing The Importance of Being Earnest, which, by the way, they are both in the movie that may play here. And they were sharing a dressing room, so they decided, well, they would cook up a story. And they told everybody, but they were going to do a play called The Crew. And nobody had ever heard of this play. Nobody ever heard of whoever they said was the playwright. But they just carried this on, and finally someone said, well, what is this play? And she said, well, it's the funniest play I've ever read. It's about two lesbian truck drivers.
And on that note, the book is Judi Dench with a Crack in Her Voice by John Miller. Thank you, Clyde, for bringing it to our attention. Thank all of you. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Doug and Clyde. Coming up after a brief break, we have a very special segment for you this time. A number of our teen volunteers in the library system, those kids who helped out with our summer reading program, also took time this summer to read books, and we are going to have some of them for the next few weeks telling us about the books they read. Today we have Chancey Head, who was a teen volunteer at the Midwest City Library. Heidi Port from our volunteer services at the Downtown Library will be talking with Chancey about her favorite book.
When you read to your child for just 15 minutes a day, you're doing so much more than just reading. You're building a bond that lasts a lifetime. Hi, I'm Elisa Johnson with the Metropolitan Library Commission, and I urge you to read to your children. Not only will they learn to love to read, but they'll be a better student. Our children's librarian will help you find just the right book. The next time your child hands you a book, take the time to read. You'll both be glad you did.
So Chancey, can you tell me a little bit about this book?
It's about a guy that, it's set in like 1961. It's about a guy that is in college, but he has to go back to his little small hometown of Colwood, West Virginia, because his dad is guilty of, or supposedly guilty of killing someone in a mine, but it's mainly about his testimonies and Homer Hickam working in the mine to support his dad.
Oh, very good. And why did you like this book?
Mainly because, well, I like rocket science, history. The history of coal mining is, I don't know, I love the history of coal mining. And then the mystery of his dad's trial. That's
so
good.
What was your favorite part about the book?
Oh man, probably the testimonies, the trials.
Really?
Those were really good.
Why was that?
Well, mainly because he's like, everyone thinks he's guilty, some people think he's not guilty, and it's like a real cliffhanger. You don't know
Really?
what's going to happen to him.
Good. And who was your favorite character in the book?
It'd probably be his dad, because, I don't know, everyone thinks he's always like so guilty, he's really mean and all that, but actually he just has a little bit of pride in his mind and in his work and everything, and I never thought there's anything wrong with that.
So, do you know other books that this author has written?
Oh man, he's written quite a few of them.
Really?
He's written Rocket Boys, which is now called October Sky, The Colwood Way, Torpedo Junction, and quite a few others.
So would you recommend this book to others?
I'd recommend it to pretty much anyone out there. It has the mystery, it has drama, comedy, science fiction, has everything.
So did you see October Sky, the movie?
Yes.
And did you think that how did it compare to his book, October Sky?
Actually, the movie isn't quite as factual as the book, but it's a very good movie. It's what got me to read the first Rocket Boys. So it's a very good movie, but they left quite a few things out and changed quite a bit of details.
Really? So have you read others of his books, and do they go in any kind of order?
Torpedo Junction, most of his books are just stories, but if you want to read like his life story, Rocket Boys or October Sky is the first one. Then there's The Colwood Way, and then there's also Sky of Stone.
So is this considered fiction, or is it autobiographical?
Kind of autobiographical.
Is it?
Yeah.
And have you found that any of the scientific facts and the facts about mining, are those correct?
Yeah, actually, pretty much, well, all of it's factual.
Good.
It's very well researched and everything.
Good. Well, Chancey, thank you so much for being with us today, and we're just so excited that you're here, and we appreciate you sharing with us about this book, and I'm looking forward to hearing what people read about it.
Thanks, had fun.
Good.
Thanks, Heidi and Chancey, and thank you for joining us. Be sure and check us out on the web at www.metrolibrary.org. You can find out everything you've ever wanted to know about the Metropolitan Library System when you log on. We'll see you again next time.
Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.